Hello, friends. Oh, big, deep breath. Today, I'm invoking and conveying an energy of healing. And just as we know that praying for and with people is also praying for and with ourselves, so that as I speak about today healing and the healer's code, that we're active in heightened even in our awareness and the activation of healing in us, as us, through us, an invocation of that. So many of you know that during the last month, I led a group through looking at cracking the healer's code. It was powerful beyond words or measure, very enlightening. And we're following through with the commitments that we made during that study and during this time, this month, this ongoing month, this next quarter, this next year, the next years, to continue to increase our love, to learn, decide, and do. So that will mean making more expansive ways of loving ourselves and others, those that have been unlovable, those that have even harmed us, violence and other ways, to learn what may have caused it, the historical, cultural, emotional references of that, a long 500-year, 2,000-year history of what caused some of that, and to decide how we're going to be in it, how we're going to be with it, regardless of what happens, and then to do something different to create a new way of being. So for those of you that were here, cracking the healer's code, if not today, a summary of that based on the chapter that is called the prescription. So think about then getting a prescription today. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you don't want another prescription. I don't either. And this is a different prescription, one you won't have to go to the store for, one you won't have to wonder if your insurance is going to cover it or not, or what the side effects are going to be. And I imagine the side effects from this are going to be something extraordinarily miraculous, actually. So this deals with unresolved trauma and a belief in our not enoughness. Now, we pretend that we don't believe we're not enough. I do. We affirm I'm a whole, perfect child of God. And we affirm things we want to believe. We affirm things we prefer to believe. And all the while we're affirming that is an indicator that we don't actually believe it. Otherwise, there would not be a need to affirm it. So this is not to gloss over our not enoughness. It's also not to add any more shame or guilt in our not enoughness, but to let the not enoughness be there and to know that it's guiding us known and unknown ways in most of the things we do. So it's not an excuse, but a way to understand if we continue to live out of this old archaic mindset of not enoughness, no matter what we think, or no matter what we espouse that we think, we are creating, we're doing it with the same energy of the old, and thereby we're still recreating this hurtful past and the ways of the past. So the idea of not enoughness has ruled the world since the creation of time. So human beings naturally believe that we are not enough, that they are not enough either. So then on a more personal macro level of this, the idea that we're not enough hovers around us all the time. Not smart enough, not tall enough, not pretty enough, not rich enough, not dark enough, not light enough. I listen to our Black and brown skin friends say that even they were judged as too light, too dark, don't get any darker, like the dark were treated worse, not influential enough, on and on and on. And at the macro level of this, the thinking that we're not enough, would stop us from doing what we can to actually change the world. That we're too small to make a difference, or that it's too dangerous to try. And it's that thinking, not only that got us here, but keeps us here, trapped, if you will, stuck in this, in a homeostasis that's not at all natural and not at all comfortable, even though we call it a comfort zone. It's just not. So, as Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems at the same level of thinking that created these problems. Myrtle Fillmore says it as, you have within you, now this is adapted, and I don't know if Myrtle Fillmore would have shook her head and had the attitude that I feel right now, but we have within us the God-given talent to change the world, to make a difference in the world. Get at it. So whatever that is for you, whatever your healer's code is, through our understanding, learning something, getting more perspective, a higher perspective, connecting the dots, being more holistic in our view, knowing that what I do to myself, I do to all. That's kept me from doing a few things, even though at times I didn't care enough about myself not to do something when I knew that it was going to hurt others or that it was hurting the whole, then I couldn't do it. By seeing life as a continuum that moves day to day, year to year, decade to decade, and truly generation to generation, and realizing that nothing is random. Everything, every place, everyone has a history, has hurts, has traumas, and that we're inextricably linked to that history through this powerful thread of life, an infinite, eternal thread of life. So as we crack the healer's code, we do so by creating strategies, ways and means, practices that we've been taught by every sage and seer since creation to strengthen our belief and our living out from the reality of our own wholeness, our actual wholeness, which includes all the aspects of us, not just the preferred parts, not just the parts that we want to put forth or let people see, but all the aspects of us. And we practice it until we can see who we really are, which is what makes unity principles a practice. It's like, oh, I know the practices, I know the principles, I can espouse them, I can quote Charles Fillmore. It's like, it's just blah, blah, blah. It's concept, it's more theory, it's more mind game until I can actually integrate these. So the difference between touting the theory and living the embodiment of the principles. And until we see nothing has altered the truth or can ever alter the truth that lives within us as a Christ consciousness, as a higher consciousness, as the beloved, as whole divine creation of God expressing itself in spite of all that we've lived through. With all that we've lived through, the truth is true, the truth that is as each of you and each of me. And until we see the reason that we have this uncommon stamina, this outstanding resilience in most humans, a grit, a tenacity to get up, and regardless of what happens, just don't quit. Regardless of how much it hurts, I just won't quit. I just don't quit. And it's from a realization of that wholeness that resilience is possible. So think about what you might do for your own healing, your personal healing, and therefore the healing of relationships, of neighborhoods, of your family, of the generations to come, of the babies being born this afternoon won't be pinned with this, what we got pinned with. So to understand and to learn from our history, to become literate about our own history, the history of our family, what was going on in our generations above us. And shamelessly, guiltlessly, and not to create more shame and hate and blame, but to become literate about it, the understanding of it, and to understand that not looking at that keeps it perpetuating itself. So we look to the past to understand the present, to look to the past to understand why I'm doing some of the things I do now that's unconscious, sometimes conscious, and I'm still doing it. And to debunk the myths of that, like that's the way it has to be. And there's so many stories about this. And one funny one is the grandmother cutting the ends off the ham, and the young girl asking her daughter, like, Mom, why would you cut the ends off the ham? It's like, well, that's the way you cook a ham. It's like, well, that makes no sense. Like, you would cut off that much of the ham to cook it? It's like, well, that's how my mother did it. It's like, well, why'd she do it that way? It's like, I have no idea, but this is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. And then she finally called and asked Granny, like, why would you cut off the ends of the ham? And she said, well, to make it fit in the pan. I said, oh, it had nothing to do with that. Like, until we question these things, we turn right around and do it. And that's a playful, innocent, no harm to anybody. And some of the things we do are not that innocent and that are harmful. The second in this understanding, to get more understanding about the past, includes to accept and admit and own and then recondition the way we've been conditioned through centuries of this, hundreds of years of this, of physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, mental circumstances, violence, and things that's still impacting us today. And to use your healer's code, whatever your healer's code is, to understand where you are and what's informing that, like why I do certain things that I do. And knowing that I've absorbed this, that I'm not immune from this, that I absolutely need healing and mental healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing, financial healing, all aspects. And to do so with great compassion, a radical kind of compassion. To know that I don't know what I don't know either, and others don't know what they don't know. And I remember like a story in the very, very first Chicken Soup for the Soul book. Remember those books? Years and years ago. And it depicted a story about a man on a train with a bunch of little kids, and they were really misbehaving and loud and cutting up and carrying on. And of course, the high righteous people around him was judging them and rolling their eyes. And I can imagine I would have been doing the same thing, like, get your kids under control. This is inappropriate behavior. No telling how I would have been judging it myself. And somebody finally couldn't take it anymore, and they kind of poked him on the shoulder and said, hey, like, your kids are gone nuts over here. Like, can you like get your kids under some kind of control? And he raised up, he had his head down, his hands over his face, and he looked at the person and said, oh, I was not aware of their behavior. I was thinking about how I'm going to tell them that their mother just died. So no, I wasn't aware of their behavior. And it's like what that piece of information does to bring compassion to us. Like, I can't be mad anymore. I can't be offended at their behavior, because now, like, whoa, I've got another piece of the puzzle. I connected some dots here. And I live now the best I can with intent to know that even though I don't see all the pieces of the puzzle, I accept that I don't see. I will never know all the pieces of the puzzle of somebody's life, but I know there's missing pieces. And I know that I can't see what I can't see. And my compassion cannot wait for it to make sense to me. And to be patient, to allow time for things to process in you, to give yourself time and space and to allow it for others. And this doesn't mean being silent or shutting down, but to speak what you need to say and to do your best to know that you're here to make a difference and to change what's being handed down the next 7 generations from what has been handed down. And for me, I know I accept that sometimes I'm just planting seeds, and sometimes I may plant them and dig them up. And oh well, but I plant again. And one of my favorite quotes of all times is to accept that we may never sit under the shade of the trees we plant. And we plant and we plant and we plant, knowing somebody else will get the shade of those plants. And then to avoid any kind of words or phrases or anything that we know is triggering or that could be hurtful or anything, and to ourselves or to another person, and to absolutely not to be in provocation of any kind, even though it's tempting to poke and tempting to get the last word in. And in the family I was born in, I used to tease that we're going to get the last word in. And I even said, we'll be at a funeral with the body going, a dead body going down into a grave, being lowered into a grave, and somebody will be over the grave going, I told you, you shouldn't have. And then finally, do something. Insist on facts. Keep a clear distinction between facts and feelings. We cannot heal what we won't look at. We can't heal from a lie or keeping lies. And remember that the misinformed, me as the misinformed, is bound to recreate from that. So let's be factual as we can. I'm the only one that can change me or anything. You're the only one that can change you. And some of my friends that practice in 12 steps say, accept what I cannot change, change what I can, and darn well know the difference. And it's me that I can change. And live out our principles, remembering that you are whole, your divine creation. What is true, infinitely and eternally true about you is divine, of the divine, as the divine. You are enough as you are, exactly like you are. So as we remember who we are, we'll be different, remembering who we are. So bless you as you practice and go forward in a prescription for wholeness. And may today's message be a blessing conferred upon you. And may you hear it at the deepest levels of your heart and soul and be inspired and awakened to remember yet again. All my love to you as I send you my blessings. MarthaCreek.com to contact me in any way in the world I can support you. Get me word. Love and blessings. MarthaCreek.com if I can support you. Blessings.